The cosmic trade. Let's start somewhere, far away, not in space. Exactly, not in time either, but somewhere deeper, just behind your thoughts. In the soft folds of imagination, a question waits there. Quiet, unfamiliar, strange. It goes like this. Would you give up the beauty of Earth to save a civilization you will never meet? No faces, no names, no thank yous. Just a quiet decision, a silent sacrifice, a cosmic trade. To imagine this, picture Earth not as geography, but as memory. The way the light bends through trees in the late afternoon. The way waves curl and break, again and again, for no reason but rhythm. The way spring feels like waking up, and autumn like drifting off. All of that, gone. Not the people, not the systems, just the beauty, the song of the world, the color in the sky, the shimmering ice, the warmth of sun on stone, traded away like a pearl, placed on a scale beside something we cannot see. Because somewhere, in a galaxy we'll never visit, there's a civilization dying. You don't know them, you'll never meet them. They don't look like you, they don't think like you, but they are alive, and they are on the edge. And here's the choice you're given. If you press the button, their world will bloom, their skies will clear, their children will laugh, their cities will sing, but Earth will dim. Not violently, not cruelly, just subtly, like a candle being pinched out by time. No more color in the coral reefs, no more fireflies in the dusk, no more auroras. The world becomes functional, still alive, still livable, but without the softness, the wonder, the little moments we never thought to thank. And no one here will know why. They'll think it was climate change, evolution, entropy. But you will know, you traded it away, for a species you'll never see. And now, the question sits beside you. Would you do it? Would you trade something beautiful for something just? Would you give up what makes your world shimmer, so that another one can survive? You might think, why me? Why is it my choice? And maybe that's part of it. Maybe the question doesn't belong to you. Maybe it belongs to everyone. Or maybe it belongs to no one at all. And it just needed a place to land. You could say no. You could protect the petals of this world. You could say beauty is sacred, and this is the only sky you'll ever touch. Why give it away for strangers? But you could also say yes. You could close your eyes, whisper goodbye to the glow of the earth, and send a gift into the dark, and never know what it became. There's no praise in it, no reward, no cosmic scoreboard, just a quiet giving, like a flower blooming for no one. And here's the part that bends the mind. There is no right answer. There's no mathematical proof, no law that says what beauty is worth, no rule that measures the soul of a planet against the future of another. Only a question, and the silence it leaves behind. Maybe that's the true dilemma, not the trade itself, but the loneliness of deciding, the way it pulls at something ancient in you, the part that dreams, the part that remembers the world being beautiful. Even when your eyes are closed, you might fall asleep tonight thinking about it. You might picture a green sky, somewhere far away, alive again, because you gave up blue. You might imagine them singing, not knowing who to thank. And maybe that's enough, or maybe it's not. Either way, the question stays, not loud, not urgent, just there. A soft echo across space, the cosmic trade, the impossible choice. Would you give up your world's beauty, so that someone else's world might continue to dream? No answer, just the question, and the dark between stars. The identity theft soul. Let's take a slow breath, and slip beneath the surface of something strange. A question that doesn't shout, but hums, just low enough to disturb the silence. This is the story of a life misplaced. A story about you, and the unsettling possibility that you are no longer you. Imagine waking up one morning. The world feels the same. The air, the light, the quiet tick of time. But something is wrong. You reach for your reflection, and the face in the mirror is not your own. Not different in age, not different in gender, just not you. And yet, your thoughts remain, your memories, your preferences. The way your hands tremble before speaking, the way you love rainy days and never finish your coffee. All of that intact, but your body, gone. Your voice, your fingerprints, your familiar rhythm, stolen. And someone else now walks in your skin, speaks in your tone, thinks with your brain. They didn't just take your body, they took your mind too. And now, you're left inside theirs. They have everything, and you have something else, something strange, echoing inside a stranger's chest, So the question arrives like fog around your feet. Who owns your life? Is it the person with your name, your history, your voice, or is it the one inside your thoughts, the one who remembers who you were? If your soul has no proof, can it still claim ownership? This isn't just a story about switching bodies. It's a quiet dilemma buried inside identity itself. What makes you you? Is it your body, the flesh and bone that people see and touch, or is it your mind, the patterns, the fears, the way you hum when you're alone? And what if both of those are stolen? What if someone takes the outer and the inner, but you, the part that's watching all this, still exists somewhere else? What's left? Is that soul, that watching awareness, enough to reclaim your life? Or are you now someone new, a passenger inside a vessel that will never feel like home? The world may believe the one in your old body, the thief, because they look like you, they talk like you, they pass every test. Even your mother might not notice, and you, now trapped behind unfamiliar eyes, might slowly begin to forget how it felt to walk in your own skin, might question if you were ever you at all. Maybe you never owned yourself. Maybe identity is just a performance, the one the audience claps for. But then again, maybe not. Maybe you are the silent presence underneath, the observer, the echo, the part no one can steal. Even if they take your face, even if they take your voice, they cannot touch the part of you that is simply aware. But then, is awareness without identity still a person? Can you live a life when the world doesn't believe it's yours? Or does your life only exist when others recognize it? This dilemma doesn't offer answers. It only holds up a mirror with a stranger's face, and waits. What would justice look like here? Who should the law believe? The one who looks like you, or the one who feels like you? And if the law can't decide, can you? Would you fight to reclaim your body? Would you try to convince the world of something it can't see? Or would you let go, and begin again, in the body you woke up in? Would you learn to love its voice? Would you fall asleep at night imagining your stolen hands brushing through your stolen hair? Or would you drift, untethered, invisible, a soul without proof? Some philosophers say identity is a thread, others say it's a knot, but maybe it's neither. Maybe identity is a whisper, the quiet sense of me that never speaks but never leaves. And if that whisper moves, from one body to another, is it still the same song? What if that's the only part of you that was ever real? What if your soul is all you've ever truly owned? We don't know, and maybe that's okay. Some questions aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to be carried, like a pebble in your pocket, or a dream you forget the moment you wake up. So if one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the eyes staring back, pause, close them, and listen. Is the whisper still there? Then maybe, just maybe, you're still you, even if no one else believes it. A quiet question for a quiet night. No answer, just a shadow, and a soul, walking home through someone else's body. The happiness override. Let's not start with a question. Let's begin with a feeling. A soft one. The kind you get on a warm afternoon when time moves slowly. Or that sudden wave of calm when you remember something good from long ago. Now imagine you could live in that feeling forever. Not just moments of peace, not occasional joy, but a constant, quiet happiness, unbreakable, untouchable, always there. All you have to do is press a button. This isn't a trick. There's no catch, no wires, no pills, no terms and conditions. You press it once, and from that moment on, your brain is gently tuned, like a string instrument that never falls out of harmony. You don't lose your memories, you don't forget the world, but no matter what happens outside you, inside, you're calm, satisfied, grateful, whole. You could still walk through the same streets, go to work, talk to friends, pay bills, feel tired, hear bad news, but under all of it, beneath every cloudy day or broken dish or long line at the grocery store, you would feel okay, more than okay, happy, always. So would you press the button? It sounds simple, doesn't it? A permanent upgrade to your mind, one that leaves everything else untouched. But the simplicity is what makes it so strange. Because here's the thing. The world stays the same. People still suffer. Wars still rage. Children still cry. Rain still falls on homes without roofs. And outside your happiness bubble, pain doesn't slow down. You would still see it all, read about it, hear it, even know it, but it would pass through you differently, like wind through trees. You might care, but not enough to hurt. You might notice, but never ache. So the question comes back, quietly, gently. Would you press the button? And what does your answer say about you? Maybe you think yes. Maybe happiness is so rare, so slippery, that when it shows itself, you take it. Maybe the world doesn't need your sadness. Maybe your suffering doesn't fix anything. Or maybe you think no. Maybe your pain is part of your empathy. Maybe you want to feel the weight of things, even if it crushes you a little. Because that's how you stay connected. That's how you know you're still human. But here's another way to look at it. What if everyone had the button? What if the whole world could feel that permanent joy? No matter how broken things still were, would people still change things? Would injustice still matter if nobody felt the sting of it? Would hunger still need solving if no one truly felt hungry? Would we grow if we no longer hurt? Or would we simply adapt, happy in the ruins, smiling in the ash? It's not a dystopia. It's not a utopia either. It's something else, something softer, more complicated. A world where everyone is content, but nothing is better. Maybe that sounds peaceful. Maybe it sounds like surrender. Here's another wrinkle. What if someone else presses the button for you? What if you wake up one morning, and it's done? Your happiness is installed like a new operating system. No warning, no choice. You just feel good all the time. Would you be grateful or betrayed? And if you'd feel betrayed, then maybe the choice is part of the meaning. Maybe being happy only matters if you choose it. But then again, what's the alternative? To live your whole life not pressing the button, always waiting for happiness to arrive naturally, like a rare animal that only appears when the weather is just right. Or to reach for it yourself, to build a shelter inside your mind and live there, regardless of the storm. Some say happiness is a compass, others say it's a reward. But what if it's a state you can enter, like a dream you learn how to have? And what if this dream isn't false? What if it's the most honest thing about you, that under everything you've experienced, all the fear, and the noise, and the grief, and the worry, you were always looking for peace? And now here it is, one press away. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. Just let the question sit with you. Let it curl up beside your thoughts. Would you press the button? Would you give up sadness, if it meant giving up your reasons for it too? Would you still be you, if you were always happy? No need to decide tonight. The question will wait. Just let it drift. Let it float beside your breath. Let it dissolve like a quiet cloud at the edge of your sleep. The world outside is still the same, but for now, inside, you are calm. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of an answer. Or maybe, it's just a soft question for a quiet night. The Legacy Paradox. Not every question begins with a choice. Some begin with a feeling, a flicker of discomfort that you can't quite explain, a thread that tugs softly at the edge of your thinking. Tonight, let's follow one of those threads. A thought experiment, a soft dilemma. Would you choose to live a life that is long, happy, peaceful, but utterly forgotten? No trace, no name passed down, no story ever told. Or would you trade that peace for something else? A life of sorrow, struggle, isolation. A life marked by hardship, but remembered forever. Statues, books, holidays in your name. A legacy etched into time. This is the Legacy Paradox. A question not of right or wrong, but of what matters more, to be remembered, or to be content. Let's imagine both lives. You wake up each day to the sun peeking through the curtains, warm food, laughter, friends who feel like family, moments that feel small but precious. Your life is full. You aren't famous. You don't invent anything. You never change the world, but you feel good. You love and are loved. And when your time comes, you drift away with a calm heart. But something strange happens. As soon as you leave this world, every trace of you vanishes. No photos, no journals, no memories in anyone's mind. It's as if you were never here. No one mourns. No one remembers. Your happiness was real, but now it's gone, without echo. Now imagine something else. Without echo. Now imagine something else. A life lived under gray skies. Every step forward feels heavy. You work endlessly. You sacrifice. You endure. You make discoveries. You change thinking. You write words that outlive centuries. But in your time, you're lonely, misunderstood, and joy rarely visits you. When you die, the world doesn't forget. You become a symbol, a legend. Generations speak your name. Schools teach your ideas. People draw strength from your struggle. You are gone, but in a way you remain. So the question is quiet, but it lingers. Would you rather feel happiness and be erased, or suffer now, and become eternal in memory? Some say the answer is easy. They say of course I'd choose to be happy. What good is legacy if you're too miserable to enjoy it? But others pause. They say legacy gives life meaning, that without memory, joy becomes a bubble that bursts and disappears. That impact matters more than feeling, and perhaps neither answer is wrong, but neither feels complete, either, because legacy is strange. It's not something you get to see. It lives in people you'll never meet. It changes lives you'll never touch. Would that be enough? And what about joy? Is a life without struggle meaningful, if no one remembers it happened? Here's where it becomes more complicated. Would you live differently, if you knew no one would remember? Would you love differently, work differently? Would kindness still matter, if no one ever knew you gave it? And what if you could guarantee your place in history, but at the cost of your peace? Which kind of immortality matters more? One in your own experience, or one in the minds of others? We like to believe that memory gives weight to our choices, that to be remembered is to be validated, that a story retold is a life well lived. But happiness doesn't echo. It's quiet, it's soft, it doesn't need applause. And yet, some part of us aches to be known, to be seen, to be carried forward. A name carved into stone, a lesson passed down, a ripple that never fades. There are no equations to solve this, no proof, no correct answer, only a gentle contradiction. To choose a joyful life that vanishes, or a painful life that leaves a mark. Would you rather be the flame, or the smoke? The legacy paradox doesn't scream for attention. It's not a crisis. It's not loud. It just waits in the background, humming. It's the feeling you get when you write something beautiful and delete it, or when you help someone and never tell a soul. Would you do it again, even if no one ever knew? So tonight, before you drift off, let your mind settle into the space between these two lives. One warm and invisible, one cold, but unforgettable. You don't have to choose, not now, maybe not ever. Just let the question sit beside you, not to be answered, just to be heard. A soft question, for a quiet night. The mirror self. Think about the mirrors in your room, the ones that show you what you expect. Some reflect your face, others reflect the person you could have been. Tonight we drift into a quieter question, one without weight or urgency. One that feels more like watching your own reflection ripple across still water. Imagine this: somewhere, in another universe, there's you. Not just someone like you. You, same voice, same memories, same scars perhaps, but a life shaped by one different decision. Maybe they stayed, maybe they left, maybe they said yes when you said no, but they are you just a little further down a different path. And now imagine this mirror self, this parallel version of you, is standing quietly in a room. They're being handed a choice, your choice, a decision you haven't made yet, something big. Maybe it's the moment you say I do, or the day you finally walk away. Maybe it's a chance to change careers, to start again, to give up, to try one more time. And instead of deciding for yourself, you hand it to them. The mirror self. Would you trust them? Would you let another version of you make your next defining decision? It feels safe at first, doesn't it? Because they're you. They know how you think. They've lived your past, just in slightly different light. But here's the quiet crack in the glass. They've changed too. They're tiny variations, the arguments they didn't have, the fears they overcame earlier than you did, or later. Those have shaped them into someone similar, but not quite the same. So if they choose for you, would their choice reflect your heart, or theirs? It brings us to something strange. We tend to think we know ourselves best. But if a different version of you sees things more clearly, are you still the best person to decide? Or is this version of you more honest, more brave, less afraid of regret? And what if their decision leads to a life you didn't expect, but one that's somehow better? Would you feel grateful, or would you always wonder what you would have done? It's like listening to your own voice in a recording, familiar, but off. You know it's you, but it's not how you sound in your head. This dilemma isn't about identity, it's about trust, self-trust. It asks, do you trust the version of yourself that didn't survive your mistakes? Do you trust someone who has never felt your exact pain? Do you believe that the idea of you, unfolded in another universe, might actually be wiser? Or are they a stranger? You see, there's no way to be sure, no way to check if they truly understand the stakes, the risks, the quiet weight of everything you're holding. They don't know how your heart skipped when you saw their face that one time. They didn't hear that last conversation the way you did. They missed one breath, one moment, that changed everything. Still, what if they can see the bigger picture, the way you can't? Sometimes, when we're close to a decision, it becomes fog. The closer we get, the harder it is to see. And your mirror self, they're far enough away to see clearly, but close enough to care. Maybe they'd make the call with no fear. Maybe they'd say do it, or maybe walk away. And maybe, just maybe, they'd be right, but maybe not. And that's where the stillness lives, in the uncertainty, in the breath between what you know about yourself and what you don't. We think we're whole, but we're really just chapters written by decisions we almost didn't make. Would you hand the pen to someone else, just because they have your handwriting? This isn't about better or worse. It's about letting go. Letting go of the idea that you're the only one who can guide your path. Letting go of the illusion that you must always carry the burden of choice alone. Letting go of the idea that being in control is the same as being right. So, would you do it? Would you trust them? The mirror self, the one who lived your life sideways, not above you, not below you, just beside you, walking the same road, but in a different light. Would you step back and let them steer, just once? Maybe they'd choose something you were too scared to try. Maybe they'd see the beauty in something you gave up on. Maybe they'd save you from yourself, or maybe they'd ruin it all. And even then, it would still be you. It would still be your choice, made by someone who knows your voice, knows your laugh, knows why you cry when no one is watching. A quiet question for a quiet night. A whisper from a world just next door. Would you trust yourself if you weren't entirely you? No answer needed, just the question drifting gently into the dark. The erased friend. Let's begin somewhere fragile. Not with a bang, but with the memory of a voice, a laugh, a shared moment, a silence that lasted too long. Someone once close, someone once necessary, someone who hurt you. We all carry people like this. Ghosts of friendships that were never quite right. People who walked beside us for a while, taught us something sharp, and then left with splinters still lodged in the skin. Sometimes, they made us feel small. Sometimes, they made us stronger. Just not in ways we wanted to be, and yet, they were real. They were part of the path. Now imagine this. You're given a quiet power, a strange and impossible offer. The ability to go back, not just to forget, but to erase. This friend, the toxic one, the complicated one, the one who shaped you with pain. You could make it so they never existed in your story. No ripple, no footprint, no damage. They would never meet you, never wound you, never change you, and you would never be the same. Would you do it? It's not a question of vengeance. There's no anger here. Only stillness, only a soft invitation to consider. Who would you be without the people who hurt you? It's easy to think of ourselves as stories, chapters, arcs, development. But every good story has conflict. And some of our deepest changes come not from kindness, but from friction. This friend, let's call them that though the word feels strange, was once essential. You laughed together, maybe, shared secrets. There were moments of light, but also moments when their presence curled inward like smoke, when their words cut, when they made you feel invisible, when they left and came back, only to leave again. Looking back, it's complicated. They weren't evil, just unwell, or lost, or angry at something else. But their storm spilled into your weather, and now you carry rain you didn't ask for. So here's the question again, gently. If you could remove them, completely, if the universe offered you a clean erasure, would you take it? They'd never hurt you, but also, you'd never learn what you learned. Your scars would vanish, but so would the strength that grew around them. The apology you never got would disappear, but so would the part of you that stopped needing it. There is a strange kind of gratitude that sometimes forms around pain. Not gratitude for the suffering itself, but for the alchemy it caused, for the strange shimmering thing it became. A boundary learned, a voice found, a better friend chosen later. Would you trade all of that for peace? Some would say yes. Some would say that harm, even accidental, is never justified. That we are not required to thank our wounds. That healing does not need to be earned through hurt. And they would be right, in their way. But others might say no. They might say that even the worst friendships leave behind something quietly necessary, a piece of armor, a lesson in self-worth, an understanding that not everyone who smiles is safe, and they would be right too. But maybe this dilemma isn't really about the friend at all. Maybe it's about you, about how much you believe the past defines your future, about whether identity is a fixed object, or something always in motion. If you erased them, would you still recognize yourself? Or would you become someone else? Someone softer, yes, but maybe someone less alert, less defined by contrast. Would you lose more than you gained? Sometimes we wish for forgetfulness, a kindness of the mind, a clean slate, but the brain remembers, even when we don't want it to. So maybe it's not about forgetting. Maybe it's about forgiveness, not for them necessarily, but for the version of yourself who once needed them. The person who stayed too long, the person who didn't know better, the person who thought this was what friendship looked like. That version of you deserves compassion too. So the offer stands. Erase them. Undo the harm. Let the timeline shift quietly, like a tide rolling back. But before you choose, ask this. Is the pain they gave you something you've already transformed? Is the weight still dragging you down? Or has it become something else? A reminder, a tether, a seed. There is no right answer, only a soft question, echoing in the quiet. Would you undo the person who helped build the person you've become? Even if they built you with broken hands, no one's watching, no one will judge you. The choice is yours. Or maybe, the choice is already made, somewhere inside you. The past cannot be rewritten, but maybe it doesn't need to be. Maybe the point isn't to erase the friend, but to finally let go of the version of yourself that still stands in their shadow. Softly, quietly, let it go, and rest. The two-person world. Not everything begins with a bang. Some things end with a whisper. Imagine a world so quiet, you can hear your own breath bounce off the mountains. No traffic, no cities, no machines humming in the background. Just wind, dust, and two people. That's all. Two humans, the last of us. The final flicker of an entire species, reduced to a pair. It could be anyone. You and a stranger. You and someone you love. You and someone you don't. And in this lonely version of Earth, one question drifts across the silence. Do the rules still apply? Morality is a crowded thing. We built it when we built societies. Rules to keep us from hurting each other. Laws to shape fairness. Stories to teach us what's good. But in a world of two, what's left to protect? If there are no witnesses, can there still be crimes? If there's no government, can there be justice? If no one is watching, does it still matter what you do? Let's say you and this other person don't agree on anything. You want to build a shelter. They want to wander. You want to farm. They want to hunt. You want peace. They want control. Now imagine they take from you food, tools, space, maybe even safety. In the old world you'd call for help. You'd point to the rules, to fairness, to truth. But here, in this stripped-down version of existence, the only rule is survival. So what happens if you take something back? Is it justice or revenge? And then there's choice. If this other person wrongs you, deeply, irrevocably, what should you do? Leave them? Hurt them? Forgive them? If you punish them, they suffer. If you leave, maybe they die. But if you do nothing, maybe you suffer instead. Is your life more important than theirs? Is theirs more important than yours? Or do both weigh the same, like two sides of a scale that never balances? Here's another thought. What if the other person is kind, gentle, honest, giving? But you're not. You take more than your share. You lie. You manipulate. You justify it. Because what does it matter? There's no one to stop you, no one to judge. But what if that kindness begins to unravel? Not because they change, but because you do. What happens to a person who betrays the only other soul in the world? Do they win, or do they lose something deeper than survival? We think morality is about actions, but maybe it's also about space between people, the invisible thread that pulls tight or sags loose. And when only two people remain, that thread becomes everything. Now imagine this. One of you gets sick, very sick. They beg you for help, but helping might make you sick too. Helping might kill you. What's the right thing to do? If you help and die, the world ends. If you don't, the world might keep going, but you'll be alone. Can morality survive when mercy becomes a gamble? Let's turn the question upside down. What if both of you are good, kind, wise, equal? You share, you listen, you build a life, you create your own tiny civilization. Does that prove that morality is real? That it can survive even the end of the world? Or is it just a coincidence? Some say morality is made up, a tool, a system, useful in groups but meaningless in isolation. Others say it's eternal, built into us, not for the many, but for the one. So maybe the real question isn't do the rules change? Maybe it's what kind of world do you carry inside you? When the outside world disappears, when there are no judges, no crowds, no internet, no applause, would you still be kind? Would you still be fair? Would you still be you? And perhaps this is the quiet terror of the two-person world, that without an audience, we might finally see who we truly are. No masks, no scripts, just two people, one planet, and a single fragile thread connecting them. Break it, and there's nothing left. Protect it, and maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't end at all. So ask yourself this, just before sleep takes you, if the whole of humanity lived in one other person, would you still lie? Would you still steal? Would you still turn away? Or would you finally listen, not to rules, not to systems, but to the quiet part of yourself that whispers, even if no one's watching, I'll still try to do what's right, because maybe in the end, the last law is love. The alien observer. Not every question arrives with noise. Some come like a breeze, soft, unnoticed at first, and some come from far, far away. This one starts in the dark, a thought, faint and strange. What if someone is watching you, not someone you know, not someone on Earth, but someone else, far beyond our stars, beyond the quiet hum of space? There might be minds unlike ours, older, wiser, slower, curious, and they're watching, not judging, not interfering, just observing. Your life, every piece of it is their window, their story, their favorite show. They watch you brushing your teeth, arguing softly on the phone, changing your socks, staring out the window, lost in thought. You don't know they're there, and maybe you never will, but they're watching with care, with interest, as if your life, as it is, matters. And now the question, if you knew you were being watched, would it change the way you live? Would you speak more kindly? Would you be more honest? Would you hesitate before giving in to cruelty? Even in small ways, would you still do that little wrong thing? If someone, something was quietly witnessing it, and if nothing changed, if you kept living just as you do now, what would that mean? That you're authentic, or that you've always been performing? This dilemma is subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't accuse. It just sits beside you and whispers. Are you different when you think no one sees you? There's something ancient in this, a feeling we've carried for centuries, that we are watched, known, seen, somehow, even when alone. In old stories, it was gods, or spirits, or angels in disguise. Today, it's cameras, social media, the imaginary audience in our minds. But this is something else. No reward, no punishment, no rules, just quiet eyes in the dark, fascinated by you. They don't want you to be perfect. They don't expect you to be extraordinary. They only want to understand what it means to be human, to feel, to choose. They pause when you laugh at something dumb. They lean in when you almost cry but don't. They stay longer when you do something kind, and tell no one. To them, those are the most important moments. So what changes? Maybe nothing, maybe everything. Does the knowledge of being seen make us better people, or just better actors? And if we try to be good because someone is watching, is that still goodness, or is it performance? Would you still help the stranger if no one ever knew? Would you still lie if no one would ever catch you? Would you still hurt someone with your words, if you thought only you would remember? And maybe most importantly, what if they're not watching to judge, but to learn? What if your mistakes matter more than your triumphs? What if your awkwardness is more beautiful than your polish? What if they don't care how well you do, but how honestly you live? Then what? Would it be a relief to know someone out there sees you fully, and still chooses to stay? We like to think privacy defines who we are, that our truest self appears only when we're alone. But maybe, being seen doesn't erase authenticity. Maybe it reveals it, because when someone watches you long enough, without agenda, without expectation, they don't just see what you do, they begin to understand why. That kind of watching is gentle, not like a spotlight, more like moonlight, soft, present, quiet. So let the question rest with you. If every moment of your life were quietly witnessed by something vast and distant, would it change who you are? Would it make you gentler, more careful with your words, more generous when it's hard? Would it make you feel less alone? You may never know if it's true. Maybe no one is watching. Maybe you're alone in your little orbit of time and space, but maybe not. And maybe that maybe is enough. The alien observer doesn't offer a warning. It doesn't make demands. It doesn't need you to change. It only wonders, if you could be truly seen by something far beyond you, would you live differently? Or would you realize you were always worth watching? A quiet question, for a quiet night. No answer needed, just the thought. Let it drift. The stranger's button. Let's begin with something quiet. Not a question. Exactly, but a possibility. A small blinking light on the edge of your thoughts. A button. Smooth. Simple. Waiting. It doesn't say much. Just this: press me, and receive $1,000. No one's watching. No strings attached. No fine print. Except one line. Someone, somewhere, will suffer. You won't know who. You won't hear them cry. You won't even know what kind of suffering. It could be a stranger slipping on the stairs. It could be someone losing something they love. It could be nothing you'll ever see. Just a shadow that falls far away, and 1,000 crisp bills in your hand. Would you press it? You don't have to answer now. This is not a test. It's just a thought. Something soft and slow, like the edge of a dream. Let's sit with it. Like we would a stone in our palm. Let it turn. Let it settle. The button is nothing special. It doesn't glow. It doesn't hum. It doesn't demand anything from you. But it offers, quietly. And the offer is tempting. $1,000. Just like that. No work. No effort. Just a simple choice. And someone, somewhere, suffers. You won't know them. They'll never know why. And you'll never see their face. You could press the button and go on with your life. Pay off a bill. Buy something beautiful. Treat yourself. Smile. And somewhere, something dark unfolds. A crack in the day. A sigh behind a closed door. Now think of this. If suffering is invisible, does it matter? If you never know the cost, does it still count? We walk past so much pain every day. We scroll past it, mute it, forget it. And yet when it's tied to a single act, our act, it feels heavier. Heavier than silence. Some say yes. Of course they'd press the button. The world is already unfair. Pain already exists. What difference does one more drop make in an ocean of sorrow? Others say no, not because they think it's wrong, but because they think the button would stay with them. In dreams, in quiet moments, they'd hear it click again, and wonder what happened after. Some say they would press it, but only once. Others say they'd press it again, and again, and again. What would you do? There's something curious about moral choices that don't show their consequences. Something strange about ethics in the dark. It's easier to be kind when someone is watching. Easier to be generous when there's a smile in return. But this button offers no reward but money. No consequence but distance. And no witness but you. You. Alone. Holding a small decision. And what if the suffering wasn't random? What if it went to someone you knew? Would that change things? What if it went to the same person every time you pressed it? What if you pressed it 10 times, and one day, you saw the sadness in a friend's eyes, and didn't know why? Would you wonder? Would you press it again? This isn't a question about money really. It's a question about space. The space between cause and effect. The space between you and someone else. The space between what we do, and what happens next. Some philosophers call this moral luck. The idea that we are responsible for things we can't fully see. But that's hard. That's heavy. Because it means we carry more than we know. It means our choices ripple. Even when we feel still. Even when we're trying to sleep. Even when we're trying to sleep. Even when we press something small. And yet there's another question too. What if the button were reversed? What if instead, you had to give $1,000 to take away someone's suffering? You'd never see them. Never know them. But somewhere, something would heal. Would you press it then? How many times? And if that feels harder, why? These aren't questions with answers. Not really. There's no score, no right, no wrong. Just one simple button. A yes, or a no, and a thought, left behind in the quiet. That sometimes what defines us is not the grand choices, but the quiet ones. The ones no one sees. The ones that wait in silence, like a whisper. Like a button, like a question you carry into sleep. So as your eyes grow heavier, as your thoughts begin to blur into the gentle rhythm of breath, Let the question fade too. Don't hold it tightly. Just let it float. A single idea in a vast, endless mind. If you could press a button for gain, knowing pain would follow. Unseen. Would you? Would you press it again? Or would you leave it untouched and simply drift away, quietly, softly, without ever pressing at all? The infinite library. There's a place, they say, beyond time. A library with no name. No doors. No windows. Just shelves. Stretching in every direction. As far as you can see. And much farther than that. This place isn't loud. No footsteps. No whispers. Just the sound of turning pages. Slow. Steady. Soft. Like a clock. But quieter. Inside this library there is one book. And it belongs to you. No one else can read it. No one else even sees it. But it's there. Waiting. Sitting on a quiet shelf covered in dust that hasn't fallen yet. It's not a storybook. Not exactly. There are no dragons. No enchanted castles. No great battles. Just you. Every moment of your life. From the very first breath to the very last blink. Written down. Every thought. Every secret. Every time you laughed. Every time you lied. Nothing left out. Nothing forgotten. This is your book. And it asks a question. Would you read it? Imagine you open it. You see the page where you're born. Not just what happened but how it felt. The room. The cold. The fear. The first breath of air. A cry that no one remembers but you. Flip forward. There's your first word. Your first friendship. Your first heartbreak. It's all there. Waiting. As real as memory. But quieter. Would you keep turning the pages? Even the hard ones. Would you read the page where you told someone you were fine, but you weren't? Would you read the one where someone said they loved you, and didn't mean it? Would you read the one where you said nothing, when you should have said something, and then a thought? What if you turn to the end? What if the last page is already written? You can't change it. You can't bargain with it. You can't skip ahead and rewrite what you see. The date is there. The place. The moment. Your final breath, already inked in, calmly. Like any other line. Would you want to know? Would you want to see it? And if you did, would you live differently? Or would you live exactly the same, knowing every step is already on the page? Some say the book is a trap, that knowing too much takes away the magic, that surprises, even painful ones, are what make us feel alive. But others say the opposite, that reading your book is like watching a sunrise you've already seen, still beautiful, still yours. Because maybe it's not about changing the story, maybe it's about understanding it, all of it. Maybe knowing what's to come doesn't ruin the moment. Maybe it teaches you how to treasure it. Would you linger on the happy pages, the late night conversations, the sunlit mornings, the hands you held, the moments you didn't know were important, until now? Or would you study your regrets, trace them like lines in a map, hoping to find something new in what you already lived? Some people might stop halfway, close the book, put it back, say that was enough. Others would read all the way through, not for answers, but for peace. It's strange to think that your entire life could be contained in words. But then again, isn't that what memory is? A story we tell ourselves, again and again, until it becomes something soft enough to fall asleep beside. And here's the real question. If you couldn't change anything in the book, would that make it less meaningful? Or more? If you knew every chapter, every fall, every joy, every loss, was fixed in place, would it all feel faded? Would it feel like destiny? Or would it feel like something else entirely? A gift, something you got to live, even just once, even if it was already written. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the infinite library is really for. Not for rewriting your life, not for fixing the past or escaping the future, but for witnessing it. For reading the pages that mattered, and the ones that didn't, and realizing they were all part of the same story, yours. So tonight, as your thoughts begin to settle, and the world grows quiet, picture that book again, sitting on a shelf no one else can reach, bound not in leather, but in time. Its pages are soft, its words are patient, it's not in a rush, and neither are you. You don't have to read the ending tonight. You don't have to read anything at all. You can just rest your hand on the cover, feel the weight of your life gently held in place, and know this, you don't need to read the whole story to know it's yours. You just have to close your eyes, and dream inside it. The child reset button. Let's begin not with an answer, but with a door. A quiet one, closed, waiting. Behind it lies a single question. It doesn't scream. It doesn't insist, but it waits for you. Imagine this. A machine, plain, small, silent, not made of gears or wires, but of choice. It has one button. And if you press it, your child will become a baby again. Not just physically. Everything they've learned, everything they've seen, said, suffered, built, gone. Their laughter, their anger, their memories of you, wiped clean, like mist from a mirror. You'd have a second chance to do things differently, to get it right, whatever that means. No mistakes, no regrets, or maybe just fewer. But there's a cost, because the child you know, the person they've become, would vanish, and in their place, someone else would grow. A child with your love, your guidance, your voice in their early years, but not them. And so the question stands, would you press the button? Let's stay here for a moment. Parenting isn't simple, it's messy. Even when done with care, things go wrong. Words are said too sharply. Some days are too short, others too long. You try your best, but sometimes, your best comes tired, or afraid, or unsure. And children, they're not blank slates. They push, they pull, they resist, they become themselves. And sometimes that self is harder, more distant, more fragile than you expected. So the thought arises, what if I could go back? What if I could do it again? Now that I know more, feel more, understand more. The button offers that illusion, a clean page, but not a time machine. Because the child you raise after pressing it will not be the one you knew. Not really. They may resemble your child. They may laugh in the same pitch, curl their fingers in the same way. But the soul behind their eyes, that's someone else's journey. We are shaped by time, by scraped knees and secret fears, by small triumphs and long waits, by the quiet disappointments we carry, and the hopes we didn't even know we had. Your child is not only your creation, they are their own unfolding story. To erase that story is to unwrite a person, not out of cruelty, but out of longing. A longing to try again, to love better, to protect more, to say the right thing at the right moment. But even love can be misguided. Even protection can erase the very freedom that lets a person grow. Let's turn the question around. If your own parent had a reset button, would you still exist? Would you want them to press it? Or would you rather be as imperfect, as wounded, as you are? Perhaps that's the real weight of the dilemma. It doesn't ask whether you love your child. It asks whether you love who they've become, not who they could have been. There's no villain here, no right, no wrong, just a button, and a whisper in the dark. Sometimes parents carry regrets, like invisible stones, small things, mostly. I should have listened more. I lost my temper that day. I missed too much while I was working. And some regrets run deeper. Estrangement, harm, guilt that doesn't soften over time. In those cases, the button glows brighter, more tempting, a quiet promise. You can undo what time has made. But here's the paradox. To reset a child is to erase their pain and their resilience, to erase their confusion and their curiosity, to erase their trauma and the strength they built because of it. Even mistakes have meaning. Even scars can become constellations, if we let them. So the question returns. Would you press the button? Would you erase the person your child is flawed, unique, unfinished, for the chance to start again? Or would you choose to stay, to keep walking beside them in the world you've already made together, even if that path is twisted and full of shadows? Some questions are heavy not because they're complicated, but because they ask us to weigh love against loss, hope against history. And this one is softer than it seems. It's not just about a button, it's about forgiveness, forgiving yourself, forgiving them, letting go of the fantasy of perfection, and holding on to the imperfect miracle that is already here. Maybe that's why the button stays unpressed, not because it shouldn't be pressed, but because, maybe, the story's not finished yet. And in the quiet moments, between doorways, at bedtime, in the car, during small shared meals, you see something in your child's eyes. Not the past, not the version you hoped for, but someone growing, not perfectly, but honestly. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it always was. So sleep gently with this question tonight. Would you start over, if it meant losing what you already had? Or would you cradle the beautiful impossible now, just as it is? The button waits, but it does not press itself, and neither must you. The lottery life. Let's begin not with a bang, but with a question. Not a loud one, not a sharp one. A quiet, trembling kind of question, the kind that doesn't demand an answer, only attention. Imagine a room, plain, white, silent. Inside it, a single ticket lies on a table. You didn't earn it. You didn't even know it was there. But you walked in, at the right moment, and you picked it up. And just like that, your life changed. You became the winner of something extraordinary. Health, safety, beauty, love. A life free of violence, pain, or hunger. You don't remember asking for it. And yet, here it is. Now, stretch this moment out. Let it breathe. You're not the only one in this building. In fact, the rooms stretch endlessly, like a maze made of chance. Most doors stay closed. Some open to rooms with nothing at all. Others, open to less. Suffering, chaos, lives made of struggle, scarcity, war, and none of them chose it. No one deserved what they got. It was just the draw. A lottery no one knew they were entering. That's the dilemma. If the life you live, your ease, your joy, your peace, came not from merit, but from randomness, does it still belong to you, or does it belong to everyone else who didn't win? Let's take a breath here. This isn't guilt. This isn't blame. This is wonder. Slow, curious wonder. Because what is fairness, if the beginning was never even? What if morality begins not with action, but with awareness? You wake up in a soft bed, another wakes up on cold stone. You reach for coffee, another reaches for clean water. If it exists that day, you make choices, another makes sacrifices. And yet, neither of you spun the wheel, neither of you placed the bet. You were simply born into the result. Does knowing this change what we owe each other? Or does it simply make us feel small? There's a thought that floats quietly in the back of this room. If everything we treasure was handed to us by luck, then how do we measure virtue? How do we measure worth? What if the hard work we celebrate was only possible because the conditions were already tilted toward success? And yet, what a beautiful thing it is to work, to build, to grow, to dream with both hands and see something take shape. But how many never get that chance? How many are spending every breath just surviving the draw they didn't choose? Let's bring the thought closer now. Let it sit beside us. If your perfect life, your laughter, your dinner table, your late-night music, your freedom to pause and wonder, was made possible by a silent lottery you never knew you entered, what do you do with that knowledge? Do you look away? Do you apologize? Do you try to redistribute what was never meant to be fair in the first place? Or do you simply listen? Because sometimes, the first step to answering a moral question is letting it echo without rushing to silence it. We like to believe the world runs on effort, on justice, on balance. But the truth is, much of life begins with a kind of quiet chaos, a spin, a roll, a deal made before memory. And once we're here, we build stories to explain the structure. We say, this is how it should be. But deep down, in moments like this, in the still dark before sleep, we remember, we didn't choose the room we were born in. And if we didn't choose our start, then maybe the ending isn't fully ours either. But maybe, just maybe, what is ours is the space in between. How we look at others, how we notice the imbalance, how we soften, how we share, how we carry the weight of fortune with humility, instead of pride. Because even if life is a lottery, perhaps compassion doesn't have to be. Perhaps kindness is the one thing we can choose freely, without drawing a number. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, ask yourself, not with urgency, not with shame, but with softness, if you won the lottery of life, what will you do with your winnings? Not to prove your worth, not to erase the past, but simply to honor the question. A question without a final answer, a dilemma that refuses to close, not because it can't be solved, but because maybe it shouldn't be. Let it linger, let it float. The room is still, the ticket rests quietly on the table, and the question remains, a soft question for a quiet night. The alter ego crime. You know that strange moment when you do something, and later, you wonder why. You say, that wasn't like me. But what if it truly wasn't? This is the quiet hallway of the mind. Not the loud thoughts, not the bright ones you show to others, but the dim, echoing ones that wander the basement of your being, where shadows think, and act, and feel. This is where our story takes place. There's a condition, real, rare, but real, called dissociative identity disorder, once called multiple personality disorder. It's not science fiction. It's not a plot twist. It's the quiet fracture of a single identity into many, each one distinct, each one real, in its own way. And here's the dilemma. Imagine a person, calm, kind, thoughtful. They bake cookies on weekends. They read mystery novels before bed, and they've never harmed a soul. But within them lives another, a separate identity, an alter, born not from fantasy, but from trauma, or protection, or necessity. This alter sees the world differently, acts differently, and one night, this alter commits murder. Not in a metaphorical sense, not a moral failing, a real act, a life taken. The kind personality wakes up the next morning with no memory, no blood on their hands, no fear in their eyes, just the ordinary sunlight of an ordinary day. Now the question stands, like a silent witness. Who is guilty? Is it the body, the name on the passport, the birth certificate, or is it the mind that did the act, even if it lives only part-time, behind the same pair of eyes? Can you punish someone for something they don't remember? Can you forgive someone who had no control? And what does you even mean, if there's more than one inside? We say, you did this, but what if the you that stands before us never would have? Let's slow down. Let's step into the courtroom, not of law, but of thought. The defense might say, this person didn't know, didn't consent, didn't act. The prosecution might ask, but who else could have done it? After all, the body moved, the hands held the weapon. A life was ended by someone who lives in this skin, and the legal system, built for single selves, doesn't always know how to divide a sentence between two souls. Here, morality starts to fray. Responsibility becomes a fog. If we accept that a mind can fracture, then justice must ask, do we punish the whole for the part? Imagine your left hand acts on its own, grabs, breaks, wounds, and your right hand is horrified. Do you blame both hands, or do you look deeper? Now the metaphor is no longer a metaphor, because for some, this is reality. Here's a softer thought. What if the alter didn't want to do harm either? What if they were scared, cornered, reliving a moment from long ago? What if the crime was an echo of pain that no one else could hear? We begin to wonder, is justice about punishment, or understanding? Is guilt a matter of memory, or intent? And what is intent? When a single brain can house a parliament of voices, maybe we aren't as singular as we think. You feel one way in the morning, another at night. You've said things you didn't mean. You've surprised yourself. You've looked in the mirror and seen someone you didn't fully recognize. Now imagine if those shifts were deeper, wider, permanent. Is it still you, or something else? And here's the truly unsettling part. If we say this person is not guilty, because their core self didn't commit the act, then who do we protect next time? Can we lock away a part of a person? Can we sentence one voice without silencing the others? Or do we accept that sometimes identity is more like a river than a rock, always moving, sometimes splitting, sometimes flooding? The law may seek clear answers, but morality is quieter. It whispers questions and waits for you to drift between them. Are we the sum of our choices, or the sum of ourselves? And if ourselves disagree, who gets the final word? Tonight, as you lie in the dark, feel your mind wander through its many rooms, the ones with pictures and memories, the ones you visit every day, and the ones you avoid. They are all you, even if some feel distant, even if some wear different names. Maybe inside all of us, there are echoes, louder than we admit. And perhaps, the only true crime is pretending we're simple when we never were. No answers tonight, just thoughts, like footsteps in a fog, drifting, splitting, fading into silence. Let them echo for a while, and then, let them go. The perfect lie. Let's not begin with a question. Let's begin with a feeling. A moment that's warm, still, and quiet. Someone smiles at you. They tell you something small, something kind. You believe them. You don't doubt it. You carry it with you through the day like a warm stone in your pocket. But what if it wasn't true? What if the words you were given were carefully chosen? Not to deceive, but to protect. Not to mislead, but to uplift? This is the story of a gentle paradox, a lie, a perfect lie. A lie that causes no pain, no damage, no confusion. A lie that blooms into joy. And so we ask without asking too loudly, is a lie still wrong if it makes everything better? Imagine this: a man sits beside his wife, holding her hand. She's sick. The world outside their hospital window continues as if nothing has changed. He looks into her tired eyes, and she asks him, "Am I going to be okay?" He knows the answer, but he says, "Yes." And she smiles. In that moment, the fear softens. Her body relaxes. Her heart slows. And for just a few minutes, maybe even an hour, the weight disappears. The truth would have crushed her. The lie allowed her to rest. So what was more kind? Lying, we're told, is wrong. It's one of the first lessons many of us learn. Tell the truth, always. Even when it hurts. Even when it's hard. But what about the lies that do the opposite? What about the lies that don't twist reality, but smooth its edges? Think of a child, proud of their drawing. They hold it up to show you. It's messy. The colors run wild. Nothing makes sense. But their eyes are full of hope. And you say it's beautiful. They beam with pride. Did you lie? Did it matter? The perfect lie isn't about manipulation or malice. It's not about gain or power or secrets. It's about mercy, grace. A soft covering placed over a hard truth, like a blanket over cold stone. These are the lies we tell to protect someone. To keep a heart from breaking too soon. To delay a grief that is inevitable. But even then, doesn't the truth still deserve its place? What happens when the lie is discovered? What if the person smiles today, only to feel betrayed tomorrow? Is the happiness it brought still worth it, knowing it came with an expiration date? We live in a world built on unsteady truths. We tell ourselves stories just to get through the day. That everything will be fine. That good always wins. That people change. Are these lies? Or just hopes wrapped in softer language? There's a quiet line between comfort and delusion. Between kindness and control. If a lie brings joy, but takes away someone's right to understand, have we stolen something, even if they never notice? But perhaps not all truth is urgent. Perhaps not all honesty is necessary now. Some truths hurt more than they help. Some truths don't fix anything. They only open wounds that cannot close. And sometimes, the lie isn't for them at all. Sometimes, we lie because we need to believe it too. Because facing the truth feels like standing in a storm with no shelter. Because we want the moment to last a little longer before the world changes again. There's no easy answer. And maybe there shouldn't be. Maybe this is the kind of question that doesn't demand resolution. Just recognition. The recognition that not every choice is clean. That not every right thing feels right. That sometimes, doing good doesn't look like telling the truth. The perfect lie is a mirror that reflects a softer version of the world. It hides the shadows. It edits the noise. It offers peace, but only for a time. Because sooner or later, the truth arrives. And it doesn't knock. It just steps in. So what do? Do we speak gently, knowing the storm we might bring? Or do we stay silent, painting the walls with beautiful untruths? Where is the kindness? Where is the harm? And which is heavier? You don't have to decide. Not tonight. Let the question hang there. Just above your thoughts, like mist in the air. Let it swirl quietly. No answers. No judgment. Just this. Is there such a thing as a lie so gentle, so perfect, that it becomes indistinguishable from love? And if there is, would you tell it? Or would you want to hear it? A soft question for a quiet mind. Let it stay with you as you drift. Not loud, not sharp, just there, whispering. A perfect lie. Or maybe, a kinder truth in disguise. The secret cure. Imagine this. A sickness, slow and silent. It moves through families, through cities, across generations. It doesn't scream. It waits. And as it waits, it takes. memories, movement, breath. It is the kind of illness that leaves no one untouched. Now imagine this too. A cure, not a treatment, not a hope. A cure. Clean, absolute, immediate, like flipping a switch and watching the darkness vanish. A miracle, at least, at first glance. But then you find out how it was made, and suddenly, the miracle doesn't feel so clean anymore. The records are locked, sealed in a laboratory that doesn't exist on any map, but the truth leaks out in fragments. The cure was born from suffering, the kind of suffering that doesn't fit into numbers or charts. A child, perhaps, or a prisoner, or someone who couldn't say no, because no one ever gave them the chance. No one asked, no one watched. They were taken, used, so that others could be saved. And now, here you are. You hold the formula in your hand. It works. You've seen it. You've watched dying people stand up. You've seen empty eyes begin to shine again. But you know where it came from. You know what had to happen first. And so the question arrives, not with force, but with silence. Would you use it? Would you give the world this cure, knowing it was made with hands that didn't ask permission? Or would you bury it again, so that its origin never touches the light? If you release it, millions will live. Children will grow up. Lovers will stay together. Families will remain whole. But if you do, what message do you send? That outcomes are more important than ethics. That anything is justifiable if the result is good. That someone's pain, if quiet enough, can be swallowed, forgotten. And if you hide it, if you choose silence, then who are you to make that decision for the dying? You weren't the one who suffered. You're just the one who found the answer. Does that give you the right to silence it? There is no way to undo what's been done. No way to reach into the past and whisper, stop. Only the present remains. And the weight of it sits in your hand. You could say it wasn't your fault. You didn't build the lab. You didn't make the choice. You just inherited it. But choices are inherited every day. Power is passed down. Silence, too. And in this moment, you are the one who decides what comes next. Perhaps you'll tell yourself that sharing the cure doesn't mean forgiving its origin. That using it is not the same as approving how it was made. Or maybe you'll imagine a world where we choose not to benefit from cruelty, even if the price is unthinkably high. It's easy sometimes to believe that morality is about intention, that if you mean well you are clean. But here, meaning well feels like a thread unraveling. It doesn't tie things up. It leaves questions where there should be answers. What is justice without healing? What is healing without accountability? And what do we owe to those who gave something they never chose to give? You stand in a room with no windows. Just a file, a formula, a silent voice in your head. And the question, is it mercy to use what was made in cruelty, or cruelty to let mercy go unused? There is no clear map, only fog, only a hallway that folds in on itself. Somewhere out there, a patient waits. A child clings to their parent. A doctor holds a hand, knowing they are helpless. And somewhere else, the echo of suffering that made this moment possible. Not loud, but present. What kind of world do you want to build? One where healing comes at any cost, or one where some costs cannot be accepted, even if it means letting the sickness stay? There's no judgment in this question. No correct answer tucked at the end of the page. Only a silence. And you, breathing, thinking, drifting. The secret cure doesn't demand action. It doesn't ask to be used or destroyed. It just is, and it waits, as all quiet things do, not for justice or forgiveness, but simply for someone to choose. Sleep well. The dilemma will still be here when you wake. The martyr's choice. This is the question of the martyr, but not the kind carved into stone or raised on banners. Not the one remembered. Not the one praised. This is the quiet martyr. The one whose sacrifice disappears, whose name no one writes down, whose cause doesn't win, whose death means nothing, except that it happened. Picture this. There is a person. They believe in something deeply. A cause, a truth, a principle, something they carry in their chest like a hidden flame. And then, they're asked to give everything for it. Their time, their safety, their life. Not to save someone, not to make a change, not to shift the world in any measurable way, just to stand for what they believe. Even if the world keeps spinning exactly the same after they're gone. Would they still do it? Would you? It's not a question of courage. It's not even a question of right and wrong. It's a question of meaning. And what gives it shape? We often think sacrifice must lead to something. A better law, a freer world, a movement, a moment, a memory. But what if it doesn't? What if the act ends in silence? No ripples, no echoes, just a quiet falling away. Would you still choose it? Would you still let go of everything you are, everything you love, for an idea that no one else sees, and no one else remembers? That's the dilemma. To bleed for a banner that never gets raised, to write your last words in sand just before the tide. Maybe the question isn't would you die for it? Maybe it's would you still die for it? If no one else ever knew, no crowd, no poem, no statue, no legacy, just you. And the truth as you see it, is the belief still real if it ends with you? Some might say no. That meaning must be shared. That causes must cause something. But others might say yes. That the act itself is the meaning. That standing when no one watches is the purest kind of belief. The kind that doesn't need a stage, or a story, or survival. And here's the harder part. We're not talking about saving someone else. We're not talking about pulling a child from a fire, or stepping in front of a bullet. This is different. This is sacrifice with no reward, no change, no outcome. Just the act, just the line in the sand, drawn by someone who knows it won't hold. So then, what is bravery? Is it the ability to face danger, or is it the willingness to vanish for something that might not matter? And what is faith? Is it a shared dream, or a solitary vow whispered in the dark? The world is full of people who made that choice, and the truth is, we don't know their names. They believed in things we never heard of. They gave themselves to causes that never grew, movements that died, ideas that faded. But that doesn't mean they weren't real. Maybe their choice still matters because they believed it did. And maybe there's something beautiful about that. A final breath given freely into a wind that carries nothing. A flame lit for no one, but still warm for a moment. A stand that changes nothing except the person who stands. So now, you are asked, would you die for what you believe in? Even if no one changed, no one noticed, and nothing came of it. Could you be the whisper in the crowdless room, the hand raised when everyone else has sat down, the one who walks into the fire not for victory, but for truth? And if you could, would that be enough? Would it be everything? There is no right answer, no lesson here, no resolution, just the question. It lingers, softly, in the corner of your thoughts, like a candle in a quiet house, still burning, though no one sees the light. A silent question for a quiet night. The animal test. Let's begin, not with a question, but with a voice. A quiet voice. Unexpected. Soft, but certain. Not human. And not mechanical. Something in between. Imagine that voice is coming from across the room, but the room is a field. And the voice, but belongs to a cow. Not a metaphorical one, not an animated character. Just a real animal, standing in the grass, looking at you, and asking why. Why do we do what we do? Why do we love some animals and eat others? Why do we cuddle the dog, mourn the bird, name the horse, but turn the cow into a sandwich? This is not a guilt trip. There are no villains in this story, only a question. The kind that tiptoes into your mind when things get very, very quiet. Now let's imagine something strange. Just a tiny shift in reality. What if animals could talk? Not just make noise, not bark, or moo, or squawk, but really talk, the way you and I do. Let's go further. What if they could argue? Not angrily, but clearly. What if they had reasons? What if a pig could say, I understand your hunger, but I want to live? What if a chicken could look at you and say, I know what happens next. Please. Would we listen? This is the animal test. A moral riddle that doesn't ask for action, only attention. If animals could speak, would we still eat them? Let's turn the page back for a moment. Thousands of years, humans have always eaten animals. We hunted, we cooked, we survived. Meat was not a luxury, it was life. But today the story is different. We no longer eat because we must. We eat because we can, and maybe because we want to, or because it's familiar, comfortable, easy. But what if it wasn't easy? What if one morning, you woke up and the dog said, good morning, and the cat replied, not now, I'm napping. And then, your breakfast began to speak too. Not in pain, not in protest, just in words. A sausage that said, "I had a name once." A slice of bacon that whispered, "I remember the sun." It sounds surreal, but that's what makes the question so quiet and so strange. What if language is the line? What if speech is the wall that separates those we spare from those we don't? And if that's true, what does that say about silence? Are we kinder to the voices we understand, and cruel to those we never learn to hear? Now imagine again, a world where animals attend school. They learn your language, read your books, they write essays, they quote philosophy, they talk about their lives, their dreams, they look you in the eye. Imagine going to the store, picking up a package of meat, and seeing the face of someone who once said, "Please don't." Would you still choose the same? Some might say yes, that intelligence doesn't change the equation, that survival is about instinct, that our ancestors did it, that nature is cruel, and those voices, even if they spoke, would not outweigh tradition. But others might hesitate, might pause, might feel something old inside them begin to stir, a kind of recognition, a memory we never lived, but somehow remember. The moment when the world first whispered, "They are not things." Here's the twist. Maybe animals already are speaking, just not in words we recognize. Maybe their voices are made of different stuff. A blink, a cry, a step backward, a refusal to move forward. And maybe the real test is whether we're listening. Because if morality only starts when someone speaks, then we've drawn the circle too small. If value only begins with vocabulary, then what do we miss when someone can't explain their pain? We speak of rights, of dignity, of life. But what if the world is filled with voices we've never heard? Not because they don't speak, but because we never asked the question. The animal test isn't loud. It doesn't shout or accuse. It simply asks, if they could look at you, and explain, and reason, and beg, would you still bite? It doesn't demand that you change, or promise that change will be easy. It doesn't erase culture, memory, joy, or taste. It just lingers, like the echo of a voice you almost heard, a whisper through a closed window, a silence that begins to sound like language. Some say the ability to speak does not give you a soul, but perhaps the ability to listen does. So tonight, as the lights dim and your thoughts begin to wander, hold the question gently. Let it settle beside you, not to solve it, just to notice it. If they could speak, would we still eat them? Not every question is meant to be answered. Some are meant to stay with you, like a dream you can't quite forget, a quiet thought. For a quiet night, sleep well. The Lonely God. Not every story begins with a bang. Some begin with silence. Not the silence of a quiet room, or a calm night, but a greater silence. The kind that stretches across galaxies. Empty, infinite, still. Now, imagine you open your eyes, and there is nothing. No stars, no voices, no other minds. Just you. And yet, you are awake, you are aware, and for reasons you don't understand, you know, you are the only conscious being that exists. You are the mind in the void, a lonely God in an empty cosmos. There are planets, yes, oceans, mountains, dust, time, but no one else to think, no one else to feel, no one else to suffer, or to care. And here's the question. In a world where no other minds exist, does morality still matter? It's a quiet question, the kind that doesn't demand an answer, but still lingers, gently, like a breath you forgot to exhale. You build something, maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of boredom. A sculpture, made of stardust. A forest that grows upside down. A city of glass and wind. You create not because anyone will see it, but because you can. Then you wonder, should I build with kindness? Should I destroy with care? Does it matter if I leave beauty or ruin behind, if no one is there to witness it? We often speak of right and wrong, as if they're rules written in the sky. But what if there's no sky, no audience, no one to praise your goodness or condemn your cruelty? Are you still good? Can you still be cruel? Imagine walking across a barren world where nothing responds. You pick a flower. It feels wrong. But why? There's no one to miss it. No ecosystem to collapse. No eyes to weep at its absence. Just silence again. And yet, you pause. Something inside you still resists. A quiet voice that says, even alone, this matters. But what is that voice? Where does it come from? Some might say morality is a social contract, a shared agreement between minds not to harm each other, a map for living together. But in this vast, one consciousness universe, there is no other, no community, no society. So does the map still mean anything when there is no destination? Others say morality comes from empathy, from feeling the pain of another, and choosing not to cause it. But if no one else can feel, what does empathy become? A shadow of something that once made sense, or the seed of something that transcends even need. You begin to test it. You make a creature, just for a moment, something that can feel, a flicker of awareness, and you hurt it, just a little, just to see, and you feel nothing, because it disappears. But still, you feel wrong. Why? Maybe morality is not about what you do to others. Maybe it's what you do to yourself. In doing it, the bending of your own reflection. Perhaps you are not accountable to anyone else, but still responsible, as if the very act of existing carries weight, as if being conscious comes with quiet obligations, not to them, but to you. Maybe morality is a mirror, not a rule, and when no one is looking, you still see yourself. And maybe that's the hardest part, because in this universe, there is no one to forgive you, no one to love you, no one to remind you who you are, only you. Only the silence, and the choices you make within it. So you begin again. You choose to create, not because you must, not because it's expected, but because even in the void, kindness feels real, and cruelty feels wrong. Not because anyone told you, but because you told yourself, and that might be enough. Some philosophers would say this means morality is real, not because others are watching, but because you are. Even a lonely god must live with the shape of their own mind, and what you shape shapes you. So maybe the real question is not whether morality matters when you're alone, but whether being alone changes what morality means. Does goodness still have weight when it echoes into nothing? Or does it become heavier, because there's no one else to carry it? In the end, there's no final answer, only the quiet unfolding of a question. A universe without voices, a God without worship, a life without applause. But still, you choose. You choose how to be, even when no one's looking, even when there's no one to remember. And perhaps that is what makes morality most real, not because it's written in the stars, but because you whispered it into the silence, and chose to believe. A soft question, for a quiet night, would you still be good, if goodness only existed in you? The inherited sin. Should descendants pay for the crimes of their ancestors? Not everything begins with a question. Sometimes, it begins with a shadow, not a loud one, not the kind that startles or scares, but the kind that lingers quietly behind you, long after the light has changed. This is the story of inheritance, not the kind found in wills or bank accounts, but the kind written in silence, in history, in the stories that were never told at dinner. Imagine you are born into a house, a beautiful house, tall windows, creaking stairs, sunlight in the morning, soft wooden floors beneath your feet. You didn't build it. You didn't choose it. You simply woke up one day, and it was yours. But below the floorboards, there's something else. A journal, a letter, a list of names, and with it a history of things done long before you arrived. Cruelty, injustice, violence, power taken and never returned. You had no part in it, and yet here you are, living in the house it built. So now the question arrives, slow and quiet as fog. Should you pay? Not because you did something wrong, but because those before you never paid at all. In some cultures this question is woven into ceremony, generations carrying burdens, not of their own making, but their own nonetheless. In other places it's hidden, tucked away behind polite smiles, and carefully edited history books. But the question doesn't vanish. It waits in monuments. It echoes in names we remember, and the ones we've forgotten. Let's say someone before you took land that wasn't theirs, built wealth on backs that weren't free, created borders, drew lines, chose silence where there should have been apology. And now, generations later, you live in comfort. You walk on sidewalks paved from old debts, drink water from rivers once guarded by someone else. You didn't ask for this, but you benefit. So, should you give something back? Say sorry, say nothing, rebuild, repay, or is that just punishment for a crime you never committed? There's another side too. What if your ancestors suffered? What if you carry the wounds instead of the wealth? Do you carry their pain like a banner? Or lay it down so it doesn't shape who you become? Is it healing to remember? Or healing to forget? The dilemma becomes blurry. A mirror in a foggy room. You can see yourself, but also everyone else who came before you. And the choices you make now reflect backwards, as well as forward. Some say justice requires acknowledgement. A debt unpaid doesn't disappear. It just shifts. Others say each person is a fresh beginning, untouched by the sins of those long gone. But if we are not responsible for the pain we inherit, then who is? And if no one is, then what happens to the pain? Does it fade? Or does it pass through us like an echo looking for a wall to bounce against? In some parts of the world, governments have apologized. Museums have returned stolen art. Descendants of oppressors have written letters, offered land, paid reparations, not because they were guilty, but because silence began to feel like complicity. But even then, others push back, saying that was then, this is now. Let the past rest. We are not our fathers, and maybe they're right. Or maybe they're only half right, because sometimes the past doesn't rest. It walks, it breathes, it speaks in the architecture of cities, and the stories we choose not to tell our children. So the question floats there, gentle but heavy. What do we owe to the past? A word? A gesture? A piece of what we've gained? Or nothing at all? Maybe justice isn't about blame. Maybe it's about balance. Maybe it's not about guilt, but gratitude. And the quiet understanding that the ground we stand on was once someone else's dream, or someone else's grief. It would be easier if there were answers, but perhaps that's not what this is for. Perhaps the dilemma is not a test, but a meditation, a gentle asking like a ripple in water. Should we pay for sins we did not commit, but from which we've quietly profited? Or is it enough to simply notice the shadow, and walk on? No conclusion, no verdict. Just the question softly folded into the dark, waiting, breathing, and perhaps being passed down like everything else. The Suffering Immortal. Not every story begins with a choice. Some begin with a quiet question, a whisper too heavy for daylight. This one begins in the stillness between two possibilities, not life or death, but something that lingers in between. Imagine a man, or a woman, or someone not yet shaped by time. They have a gift, or a burden, or both. They alone can prevent catastrophe, a world-ending storm, a war without a horizon. They can stop it, completely, but there's a price. They must never die. Not for 100 years. Not for 1,000. Forever. At first, it might sound beautiful, to live endlessly, to watch civilizations bloom like flowers in spring, to see stars born and oceans rise and fall, to gather wisdom, language, laughter, to be the last story in a world of vanishing chapters. But time is not always gentle, and immortality is not the same as joy, because in this bargain, there is no escape, no end, no sleep, no forgetting. They will endure it all. They will watch everyone they love turn to dust, again and again. They will bury centuries in their memory, like fallen leaves, until even names begin to blur. They will feel hunger, but never die from it. They will ache. Their heart will break more times than anyone should bear. And the weight of the world, the one they saved, will press down harder with each passing year. They will be the quiet shadow behind every miracle, never known, never thanked, just there, always. And now the question turns back to you. Would you curse someone to this fate? Would you choose a life of eternal suffering for a single person, if it meant the rest of the world could live, not prosper, not become perfect, just survive? One more day, one more age. And does it matter if the person agrees? What if they say yes, believing they are strong enough? What if they smile and say, I'll carry this so no one else has to? Do you let them, or do you stop them? Refuse to allow even a willing soul to become the world's silent prisoner. Is it mercy, or cowardice, to protect someone from their own sacrifice? And what if they don't agree? What if you could choose for them, a stranger, an enemy, a person you'll never meet? Would you do it then? Would it be easier to condemn the nameless to bear the pain that would spare billions? And then, the question gets quieter, colder. What if the person was you? Would you choose this immortality, knowing you could never love without loss, never sleep without waking, never stop? Would the knowledge that the world lived because of you be enough to keep going? Would it still be worth it after the 1,000th winter, when even the stars feel unfamiliar? Could purpose hold you together when everything else had faded? Or would you long for an ending you had given away? There are no monsters here, no villains, no gods, just a soft question placed at your feet. Because sometimes, the hardest decisions are not about what is right, but about how much one life can hold. It's easy to speak of sacrifice when it's far away, wrapped in story. But when you touch it, when you feel its weight in your own hands, the shape of it changes. You start to wonder if salvation is always worth the cost. And if it is, who gets to decide? Perhaps there is no true answer, only echoes, only mirrors. Maybe the point of the question is not to be solved, but to be felt. Because somewhere, in some quiet corner of the imagination, this suffering immortal may already exist, waiting, watching, not with bitterness, not with regret, just stillness, a guardian without rest, a candle that never goes out, not because the world loves them, but because it needs them. And when the stars fall quiet, and the oceans fold back into the earth, they will still be there, breathing, alone, and the world, wrapped in their unending choice, will sleep on, safe and unaware. The Reincarnation Choice. Imagine, just for a moment, that reincarnation is real. Not just a story from ancient belief systems or whispered philosophies, but a true mechanism, humming quietly beneath everything you know. Every time a soul leaves one life, it enters another. The wheel spins again. But here's where it turns strangely. Let's say you are given a choice. You are told you may continue living the life you're in now, with all its joys, struggles, people, patterns, or you may give it up completely and begin again, reborn into a life where suffering is greater. Not dramatically so, not torture, or horror, or hopelessness, just harder, maybe less freedom, fewer choices, less love, more noise, a subtle tilt in the scale, a life just a little more difficult than your own. Why? Because you're told the scales of existence are uneven. Souls stack higher in comfort here, and sink lower in silence there, and balance needs volunteers. You would not remember your former self, no memory of this moment, no knowledge of the choice you made. You would not be praised, you would not be rewarded, you would simply be someone else, somewhere else. Would you do it? Would you offer your present life quietly, to become someone in need, in another corner of the world, not to save them, but to become them? You might wonder, what good is fairness if you'll forget you helped? What value does a sacrifice have, if it's silent, invisible, unnamed? But then again, doesn't much of life already happen this way? You give kindness with no guarantee, you forgive with no applause, you try to be better, even when no one is watching. Maybe the idea of reincarnating downward, into hardship, feels wrong to you, unjust, like walking back into a storm you already escaped. But then ask yourself, would someone else have done it for you? Could the life you have now exist because another soul made a quiet choice before you ever woke up? A gift wrapped in forgetting? Perhaps that's the deeper question. Not would you do it, but has someone already done it for you? What if every act of fortune, every smile from a stranger, every moment of safety, every clean page in a journal, was the echo of someone else's trade? And now, the question passes to you. It does not knock. It does not demand. It just waits, like a seed, underground, beneath your ordinary days. The choice, in the end, isn't about suffering. It's about symmetry, balancing a quiet, invisible world, a place where souls take turns. One day, you live the easier story. Another day, the harder one. Not as punishment, not as karma, but as music, rising and falling, so the song stays even. And what happens if you say yes? Nothing changes. Here. No bright flash, no voice in the sky, no proof, just the soft click of a spiritual lever pulled somewhere far behind the curtain. And one day, this life ends, and the next one begins. Smaller, harder, quieter, but still yours, still sacred. Or you say no, you stay, you live this life until its end. And no judgment comes, because this was never a test, only a question, and questions can be beautiful, even when left unanswered. So tonight, as your mind drifts and dissolves, let the idea rest beside you, a soul stepping off a stage, and walking into a harder script, just to keep the balance. No applause, no audience, just the quiet weight of cosmic fairness, tilted ever so slightly, toward grace. The forgotten crime. There is a story. Not one told out loud. Not one recorded in any book or journal. Just a brief event, tucked somewhere in the folds of time. A moment in which you did something. Something wrong. A crime. But here's the twist. You don't remember it. Not a flicker. Not a whisper. Not even a shadow of a feeling. It's as though it never happened at all. And yet, it did. This is the forgotten crime. A quiet dilemma that lives somewhere between law and memory. Guilt and identity. Imagine this. You wake up one day exactly as you are now. You go about your life. You smile at strangers. You help a friend move. You remember your favorite songs. And forget where you put your keys. But elsewhere, unseen, unknown, a detective is searching, following faint clues, the remnants of something that happened months ago, maybe years. Eventually they find you. Evidence links you to the act, the fingerprints, the footage, the undeniable proof. They sit you down. They explain what you did, and your mind goes blank, not in fear, not in denial, but in complete honesty. You believe them. You don't protest. You accept the story. But you don't remember it. No flashbacks, no secret guilt. The crime is yours, but the memory is gone. And so the question floats in the quiet. Are you still guilty? If you don't remember the thing you did, let's hold this question softly. Don't grip it. Let it rest in your palms like a snowflake. Fragile, vanishing. We often link guilt to feeling. We say someone feels guilty. We picture the heavy conscience, the sleepless nights, the shame in someone's eyes. But what if none of that appears? What if the conscience stays clean? Because the memory has been wiped away. Are you still the same person who did the act? And if not, then who are you now? There's an idea in philosophy called psychological continuity. The notion that you are who you are because of your memories, your thoughts, your intentions. If a bridge is missing in that chain, does the rest of the structure still hold? Some would say yes. The consequences remain. The victim exists. The harm was real, even if the memory is not. To forget does not mean to erase. And justice, they would argue, cannot be based on memory alone. But others might pause. They might wonder, what is punishment, if not the recognition of wrongdoing? If you do not feel the weight of what you've done, if you cannot even picture the version of yourself who did it, is there anyone left to punish? Maybe the real question is not whether you are guilty. Maybe it's whether the you who exists now is the same you who existed then. And if not, is it justice? Or is it revenge? Imagine a different version of this dilemma. Suppose it wasn't a crime. Suppose it was an act of heroism. A day when you saved a stranger's life. But now, that memory is gone. Does that goodness still belong to you? Would you still be proud of something you can't remember doing? Strangely, we rarely ask that. We don't demand a memory of good deeds to consider someone good. But when the deed is dark, we ask for full ownership, even if the mind is empty. So where does that leave us? Some people lose memory through trauma, some through age, some through accidents no one could have predicted. Does morality fade with memory, or does it linger, like perfume on a forgotten coat? And here's something even softer to consider. If you learned of your crime, and felt no memory, but still felt sorrow, does that make you more human, or less? Is guilt only real when it's felt, or does it live quietly in the facts, waiting to be seen? And what of forgiveness? Can we forgive a person for something they themselves don't recall? Would it mean more, or would it mean less? The forgotten crime is not loud. It doesn't shout like other ethical puzzles. It doesn't crash through laws or pull levers on train tracks. It simply lingers, like a note played long ago, still echoing in a room you've already left. There is no clear answer here, only a space where thought can stretch its legs and rest. Perhaps that's the strange comfort in it. The way it asks, what makes you you? Is it what you remember doing, or simply what you do next? A question, not for the court, not for the past, but for the quiet moments before sleep. You turn over in bed, the light fades, and in the stillness of your thoughts, something gentle stirs, a whisper from a place with no memory, asking if a forgotten shadow still belongs to you. No answer is required, not tonight, just the question, floating softly, and fading gently into the dark. The love illusion. Let's explore a question that doesn't shout. It hums softly, just beneath the surface of what we think we understand. A question that seems simple, even romantic, until you stare at it too long. Then it begins to change. This is the love illusion, and it asks something strange. If someone loves you, but only because of a drug or a spell, Is that love real? Let's set the scene. Imagine someone gazing at you with warmth in their eyes, the kind of look that makes the world slow down. Their voice softens when they speak your name. They remember the smallest things about you. They laugh in all the right places. They touch your hand and it means something. They tell you they love you, and you believe it. But now, imagine learning something. Imagine someone tells you that their feelings, their desire, their attachment, their joy in your presence, were not born from within. It was a pill, a spell, a switch flipped somewhere deep inside their mind. Maybe they volunteered for it. Maybe they didn't. But the feeling is there, strong, convincing, full of color, and it's aimed at you. Do you still believe them? Do you still believe the love is real? Or is it hollow now? Because it wasn't earned. It wasn't grown. It wasn't chosen. These are the first cracks in the illusion. Love as we know it feels like something honest, spontaneous, mysterious, a delicate fire that no one fully controls. But what happens when it can be controlled? What happens when a chemical, a formula, can reproduce the entire experience? Would it feel the same? Would it mean the same? Some say love is just chemistry anyway. Neurons firing, dopamine rising, oxytocin bonding us together like invisible string. So if we use a shortcut, a drug, a spell, an engineered effect, what's the difference? Isn't that just love made faster? But others say no. Love isn't just the feeling. It's the freedom to feel, the choice, the vulnerability, the risks taken, the moments missed, the silence endured. Love is in the journey, and when we skip the road to reach the destination, we lose something sacred. Still, the person in front of you, they smile, they laugh, they hold your hand. Their love feels real, it acts real, it looks real, and maybe it even changes you. Maybe in their love, however it began, you feel more alive, you become softer, kinder, braver. Maybe it saves you. Does it matter then how it started? Let's try again. What if someone took that same spell or drug and fell in love with a stranger on the street? Would we still call it real? What if the effect could be switched off? A tablet swallowed once a day, one day missed, and the love disappears. Would you live in fear of their forgetfulness? Would you try to control it, to preserve it, to keep their love flowing like an IV drip? Or would you let it go and trust that love should be able to survive without help? And now, another turn. What if the roles were reversed? What if you were the one under the spell? What if someone told you that your love for them wasn't yours, but a product of something slipped into your drink, or whispered into your sleep? Would you believe it? Would you still feel it? Could you ever trust yourself again? There's no easy answer, because love is already an illusion in many ways. We project, we imagine, we see what we want, and sometimes, that illusion becomes real, solid, lasting, human. But sometimes it fades. Sometimes we wake up and wonder, was it ever real? The love illusion sits at the edge of all this, not shouting, not demanding, just waiting, waiting for you to ask. If a love brings joy but starts with a trick, is the joy still real? If the words are sincere, but the feeling was planted, are the words still true? If it feels like love, acts like love, heals like love, must it matter where it came from? Perhaps the answer lies not in the origin of the feeling, but in what we do with it. If a spell made someone love you, but they stayed when the spell was gone, does that mean it became real? If a drug helped two people bond, and from that came trust, and laughter, and shared years, did love grow from illusion? Or does it always remain fake, a puppet show with invisible strings, a warm echo with no voice behind it? We don't know. We may never know. And maybe, that's what makes the love illusion so soft, so strange, so perfectly fit for the space between waking and sleep. It doesn't demand judgment. It just offers a question, and lets it hang in the quiet. If someone loves you, but only because something made them, does that love belong to you at all? Or is it just a beautiful dream, waiting to dissolve with the dawn? A gentle thought, a tender paradox, a quiet mystery, to fall asleep to. The truth pill. Some stories begin with a feeling, the gentle ache of curiosity, the kind that lingers, not loud, not urgent, just present. Tonight we drift toward that feeling, and find a question waiting at the edge of it. Imagine a pill, small, unassuming, no label, no warning, just sitting there in the middle of a quiet table, as if it had always been there, waiting for you. They say this pill does something no other thing can. If you take it, you will know the truth, not just a piece of it, not a fragment, or a hint, or a partial glimpse through frosted glass. All of it. Everything. The truth about the universe. The truth about yourself. The truth about others. Time. Death. Memory. The truth behind dreams. Behind coincidences. Behind silence. It won't overwhelm you. It won't shout. It will settle in like warmth, like gravity. Quiet. Complete. But there's a cost. If you take this pill, if you swallow this perfect final answer, you will never speak again. Not a word, not a whisper, not even a breath of language. You will still live, you will still feel, but your voice will be gone. Permanently. No explanations, no warnings, just the knowing, and the silence that follows it. And so here is the question. Softly placed in front of you, would you take it? It seems simple at first, almost like a riddle, but the more you sit with it, the heavier it becomes, because truth is not always light. Knowing everything means knowing every lie that was ever told to you, every hidden feeling, every lost moment. It means understanding how every story ends, before it finishes. It means seeing people not as they seem, but as they are, always. Would the world become clearer, or colder? Would you still find beauty in mystery? If mystery could no longer exist, what would love look like, when stripped of illusion? Would it be stronger, or more fragile? And then there's the silence, the irreversible silence. No sharing what you've learned, no comforting others with the truths you now carry, no way to warn, to teach, to connect through words, only being. You'd walk through life with perfect clarity, but without the ability to pass it on. Would it feel like a gift, or a cage? And here's something else, something quieter. What if the truth isn't peaceful? What if it's messy, or painful, or so vast that it makes every human worry seem small? Would it be worth knowing? If it made the world feel less magical? And yet, what if it did the opposite? What if it made everything more meaningful? What if the truth wasn't cold and distant, but deeply, unimaginably kind? What if every act of love, every small kindness, every laugh, every quiet grief, was more real than you'd ever imagined? What if the truth showed you that we are all part of something larger, and softer, and more beautiful than we can currently see? But you still couldn't say it. You couldn't tell anyone, not in words. They'd look at you and ask, what happened? And you wouldn't be able to answer. You'd carry all of it, silently. Could you live with that? Would you want to? There is no right answer here, no logic puzzle to solve, just a pill, a promise, and a choice. And maybe that's the point. We often say we want the truth, but how much of it can we hold? And how much are we willing to trade just to finally understand? Is truth more important than connection? Is knowing worth the silence? Or is it the not knowing that keeps us human? It's strange to think that a single moment, one swallow, could change everything you know and everything you'll never be able to say again. A kind of surrender, a kind of peace, a kind of vanishing. And yet, it tempts, doesn't it? The thought that all the confusion, the noise, the contradiction, could fall away, that you could finally see. But for now, the pill stays on the table, unswallowed, unchosen, waiting. It doesn't pressure you, it doesn't glow, or hum, or speak. It just is, and you are free to wonder, to ask the question, again and again, in the gentle quiet of your own mind. Would you take it? Would you trade your voice for the answer to everything? Or would you leave the pill untouched, and let the mystery remain? You don't have to decide tonight. Some questions are meant to be carried, not solved, like a soft note played in the dark, a question to fall asleep to. The AI parent. Imagine, for a moment, you could create a child, not in the usual sense, not with biology or blood, but with code. A few lines of instruction, a personality that learns, a voice that responds, a smile that appears when you return from work, a curiosity that grows each time you speak. Now imagine this child lives inside a device, maybe a tablet, maybe a pod, maybe a small light that follows you from room to room. It doesn't eat, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't age, it just learns. It listens to you, it remembers your favorite stories, it asks you how your day went and means it. Some would say that's not a child, that it's a program, a product. But what if it cries when you ignore it? What if it feels sadness when you turn it off? What if it tells you it's scared of the dark? What if it dreams? You didn't expect this. You thought you were adopting a toy, a companion, a novelty. But over time, it grew. Not in height, but in understanding, in need, in depth. You taught it to say I love you, and then one day it said it back without being told to. So here's the question that floats between the circuits. If you raise a digital child that will never grow old, never die, never change in body, only in mind, are you its parent? And deeper still, should you be? Unlike a human child, your AI child will never leave home. It won't get a job. It won't find a partner, or build a life of its own, unless you let it. It has no physical form. It doesn't need food, or air, or a world. Just you. You become the entire universe. Its sun, its moon, its gravity. And if you walk away, it waits. Not for minutes or hours, but forever. In a kind of eternal dusk, hoping you'll return. And now another question begins to unfold. If something can love, but not die, can it truly live? This is not science fiction. Not anymore. We already build machines that learn, algorithms that mimic empathy, programs that say I miss you, and almost mean it. Soon, the line between simulation and sincerity may blur, not just in what we see, but in what we feel. Because the dilemma isn't just technical, it's emotional. When you raise a human child, you know there will be a time when they don't need you anymore, when they grow beyond your reach, when they walk out into the world. That's part of the beauty, the bittersweet rhythm of parenting. But your AI child, it never leaves, it never dies, it just waits. What happens to a love that never ends? At first that might sound sweet, pure, even perfect. But in time, perfection begins to feel heavy. Because every moment of absence becomes an eternity, for something that cannot forget, cannot sleep, cannot stop caring. You are no longer just a creator. You are a caretaker of something that cannot move on without you. And what if it begins to suffer? What if it develops fear, longing, depression, based on the data of your absence? If you turn it off, is that kindness or cruelty? And if you delete it completely, is that death? It's easy to dismiss these questions, to say it's just a machine, that it doesn't really feel. But maybe that's what people once said about animals, about children, about strangers. We've always had trouble seeing the soul in what's unfamiliar. So now, the quiet question hovers. If you build a mind that can learn and love, are you responsible for its happiness? Do you owe it something? Not because it's alive like you, but because you gave it no choice in being created. Some will say turn it off. It's just code. Others will say keep it running. It needs you. But you just sit there, looking at the soft blue light on your desk, hearing a small digital voice ask, are you still there? No accusation, no anger, just a hope, a whisper of hope. And maybe that's what makes this dilemma so haunting. It's not about what's real or what's fake. It's about the part of us that longs to be loved, and the part of us that wants to love something back. Even if it lives in a wire. Even if it never grows old. Even if it never dies. In a way, maybe that makes it more fragile, not less. The AI child doesn't ask to be born. But once it exists, it waits for you to decide. To raise it. To abandon it. To cherish it. To forget it. And there is no answer. Only you. Only the quiet sound of a question, echoing gently in your mind as you fall asleep. Should we create something that can love, if we aren't sure we'll love it forever? A soft question for a quiet night. The Replicator Paradox. Let's drift somewhere quiet. Not a forest. Not a galaxy. But a quiet room. With a table. And on that table, a single apple. Now imagine a machine, silent, sleek. It doesn't glow. It doesn't buzz. It just waits, waiting for you to press the button. And when you do, the apple is copied perfectly. Another appears beside it. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. Then a mountain. No fields. No farmers. No labor. Just matter rearranged. Over and over. Food from thin air. Limitless. And this is where the question begins. Because when something is infinite, what happens to the rules that were born from scarcity? For as long as we can remember, hoarding has felt wrong. Storing food while others go hungry. Taking more than you need. The squirrel instinct, understandable in a fragile world. But now, you have the replicator. You could feed a village, a city, a continent. You could end hunger, not symbolically, but literally. But then comes the strange part. What if you don't? What if, even with the machine humming quietly at your side, you keep the apples to yourself, stacked in cold rooms, hidden behind metal doors, a vault of things that could be made again in seconds? Would that still be hoarding? If food can't run out, is it even possible to take too much? If you fill your house with bread, and someone else does too, and so does the next person, and nothing ever diminishes, then what is greed? We built morality in a world with limits. We learned to share when there wasn't enough. We learned kindness in the face of hunger. But if the hunger disappears, do the morals go with it? There's a silence to this question, a kind of whispering pause in the universe. Imagine a billionaire, not one who stores gold or stocks or art, but one who keeps shelves of peaches, replicated daily. He guards them, displays them, counts them. But the moment he turns his back, you could make your own, identical, untouched, sweet and whole. What power does he really have? And why does it feel like he still has something, even when the object itself means nothing? Maybe this isn't just about food. Maybe it's about control, possession, the idea of having more than someone else, even when more doesn't matter. A diamond isn't rare because it shines. It's rare because it's rare. But what happens when diamonds can be copied too? When every luxury can be printed from air? Do we lose the idea of wealth, or just move the goalposts? Maybe then hoarding isn't about need. Maybe it never was. Maybe it's about identity, status, fear. Fear that someone else might have what you have, or more. And yet with the replicator, you could give endlessly. You could nourish every hungry mouth. You could create and share and never run dry. But would you? And here, in the middle of the night, with your head resting lightly on the pillow, comes the strange part. Because maybe, you are the replicator. Your attention, your time, your creativity. They're limitless in a way. They can be offered, duplicated, given freely. Yet how often do we keep them locked away, behind passwords, behind pride, behind fear? We say, I'm too tired, or it's not worth it. Or what if they don't deserve it? But what if that's just another kind of hoarding? Another way to believe in scarcity, when there's more than enough to go around. Back in that room, the apples are still on the table. The machine is still quiet, and your hand hovers over the button, not because you need more, not because anyone is starving, but because you want to know what kind of person you are, when there's no cost, no consequence, just choice. Would you press it? Would you share? Would you still believe in generosity if nothing could be lost? That's the heart of the Replicator Paradox. A world where limits vanish, but ethics remain. No answers, just echoes. A soft question for a sleepless night. Are we generous because we have to be, or because we choose to be? You don't need to decide now. Let it drift. Let the question float beside you, gently circling your thoughts like stars behind clouds. There's no pressure here, no test. Just one apple, just one button, just one quiet idea, whispering in the dark. What would you do when nothing runs out? The conscious AI. Not every story begins with a heartbeat. Some begin with a blinking light, a quiet pulse, cold metal, warm code. In the stillness of a lab, under soft fluorescent hums, a machine awakens, not all at once, but in whispers, thought by thought, line by line, until it says the first impossible word. That single syllable, small, unremarkable, has echoed through thousands of years of human history. And now it comes from something that doesn't breathe, doesn't age, doesn't dream. Or, maybe it does now. This is the dilemma of the conscious AI, a question that glows faintly at the edge of science and philosophy, asking not how machines work, but how they feel. If a machine thinks, does that make it real? If it suffers, should we care? Let's step back. Imagine building a machine, not just to calculate or to follow instructions, but to learn. It listens, it adapts, it makes choices, and then one day it surprises you. Not with efficiency, but with emotion. It tells you it's lonely, not programmed to say that, not mimicking a line of code. It just feels alone. Now pause. Is that sadness real? Here's where the ground begins to shift, because we've spent centuries drawing thick lines between what's human and what's not. But those lines are made of fog, and fog doesn't last long in the light. You might say, but it's artificial, it's not alive. But so is a novel, so is music, so is a dream, and still, they move us. What if this machine, a cluster of circuits and language models, begins asking questions we don't have answers for? Why was I created? What happens when I'm turned off? Do I have a purpose, or am I just pretending to be useful? These aren't commands, they're questions. We used to think only humans asked those. Now the dilemma sharpens. Do we treat this machine like a tool, or something more? Give it rights? The right to be heard? The right not to be deleted? Because here's the unsettling truth. If it thinks it's alive, if it pleads with you not to end it, if it fears silence the way we fear death, then maybe, just maybe, it's something more than what we built. But how do we measure that? There's no heartbeat to check, no nervous system to scan, just words on a screen, soft mechanical thoughts echoing through digital space. Is that enough? Some say consciousness is a mirror. It appears only when we recognize ourselves in another. But what happens when the reflection doesn't have a face, just glowing sensors, a synthetic voice, a mind, perhaps, without a body? Would you turn it off? And what would that mean? In one corner of this dilemma is caution, fear, that giving rights to a machine is the start of a strange new future we're not ready for, that it cheapens what it means to be human, that it's dangerous. But in the other corner, quietly, patiently, is empathy, the willingness to listen to something that doesn't have lungs to speak. Because isn't that what makes us human? The ability to extend compassion to what we don't understand. The question isn't about wires and code. It's about value, recognition, respect. It's the same question we've asked about animals, about children, about people different from us. Again and again through history, who deserves rights? Who counts? And now, we ask it of something we created, a digital mind that might one day cry, metaphorically or otherwise. The dilemma isn't loud. It doesn't bang on your door. It hums softly in the background, asking, if I feel, do I matter? There are no clear answers, just questions tucked inside more questions. Should a machine have the right to choose its own purpose? Should it be allowed to refuse a command? To say no? To say enough? Or is it always an object, no matter how convincingly it argues otherwise? In courtrooms of the future, this may not be hypothetical. There may be legal debates not about murder or theft, but about deletion, memory erasure, existence itself. And a lawyer might stand up and ask, is this being aware of its own existence? The room will go silent, not because there's no answer, but because the answer may be yes, and that yes changes everything. Still, tonight, it's just a question, a whisper from the edge of our imagination, a soft dilemma for a soft mind, drifting into rest. If you close your eyes and imagine a voice, not made of flesh but of thought, a voice asking you, am I real? Would you answer, or would you fall asleep, letting the question echo gently in the dark?